Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, revised departure guidelines for Filipino overseas travelers issued to guard against human trafficking. The stricter requirements beginning September 3 receives harsh criticism from travelers. The Justice Department says travelers who will miss their flights due to the stringent requirements and lengthy interviews can file complaints. Justice Undersecretary Nicholas Ty joins us in the program. The Interagency Council Against Trafficking will implement this September 3rd its revised guidelines for outbound Filipino travelers. Aside from basic travel documents like passport and boarding passes, passengers need to present additional supporting documents if they are paying for their own trip or if a family member abroad is shouldering the cost. They will also be interviewed by immigration officers. The government is getting flack from travelers who say the revised guidelines are prone to corruption and will only lead to longer lines at the immigration. So, let's find out more about this. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Justice Undersecretary Nicholas Ty. Yusek Ty, welcome to the source. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Pinky. Thank you for having me, and good morning.
So, have you been reading and hearing about the criticism these
yes.
guidelines are receiving?
We have been monitoring it very closely. In fact, we had a press conference yesterday in DOJ to clarify a lot of this criticism that came from a lot of misimpressions that have arisen.
Are there really misimpressions? So in that press conference, let's do a summary of that. Basically, you guys were saying that this will really just affect about, 5% of the travelers? 95% won't really have problems. Is that true, sir?
I think the first thing we pointed out here is that the revised departure formalities don't really require anything new. This was merely issued to formalize what are already existing requirements and to rationalize certain processes or particular categories. In fact, for particular categories of travelers, we actually removed some requirements. Now to that 95%, 5% number that you said, we had a rough estimate of the number of travelers who may be affected, particularly on the requirement of financial capacity. Because what happens here is that financial capacity, that's only optional. That more often than not, the traveler will not be required by the immigration officer to present proof of financial capacity. If the immigration officer is actually satisfied at the level of primary inspection, relying merely on the basic documents, which includes the passport, the return ticket, the boarding pass, and the visa if necessary, as well as the information submitted by the passenger sa e-travel portal, and of course the demeanor and the response of the passengers to the questions propounded by the immigration officer. Chances are within the 45-second window, the passenger will be able to depart.
45-second window. Yusek, two things you said. Sabi niyo, this is really not new.
Yes.
But why is it called a revised guideline if it's not new?
We had to make some revisions because the previous guidelines were issued way back in 2015. And since 2015, a lot of things have happened. So many new laws have been passed. The anti-trafficking law has been amended. We had a new law that created the DMW. We had new laws on adoption. And aside from that, we were able to observe a lot of new modus of human trafficking and a lot of particular concerns of Filipinos who have to travel abroad, which were not covered by the previous guidelines.
Let's be very clear about this. The reason for this is really to prevent human trafficking. I mean, that's really one of the biggest purposes. Well, actually, it is the purpose for these revised guidelines. Here's my question, though, Yusek. It's not new, but you needed to revise this. Fair enough.
Yes.
This was done in 2015. It's been 8 years. But here's my question. If it's not new, such as the basic requirements, I've never heard, sir, of an immigration officer ask me or anyone I know, but I could be wrong, whether they're going to go to, let's say, an Asian country that, you would actually need your hotel booking reservation.
Yes.
That was not something that was required in the past. I mean, I've never heard of an immigration officer say, "Nasan yung hotel booking mo?" I'm sorry, wala, hindi ko dala. I'm staying with my friend or whatever. I'm sorry, you cannot board the plane. So that's what I...
Well, first of all, baka
Go ahead, sir.
dahil kayo yun, ma'am. Face value pa lang, nadaan nyo na sa face
Which is
value at
unfair.
makakalabas na kayo, no?
Which is very unfair, sir.
Yeah.
That's why my premise
Yeah, but-
was when I said
yes.
me or anyone I know, sir. Because I or anybody should not be any special. Hindi ho ba? Pantay-pantay po tayo. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. First of all, yung proof of financial capacity, it's already there in the previous guidelines. And again, your proof of financial capacity, that's, again, no, that's not requested for immediately. Only if the immigration officer sees particular red flags. What are some of the red flags?
Okay.
One is kung no travel history. No travel history at all, at medyo relatively young, no? So definitely, for that type of traveler, we will need to ask for proof of financial capacity. Another is kung inconsistent yung mga sagot niya. Diba? During the 45-second window at the level of primary inspection, the primary inspector can propound questions to the traveler. And if the traveler is not able to answer those questions properly, a good example is if the declared purpose of travel is tourism, and yet lumabas na maghanap siya ng trabaho doon,
Yeah.
that passenger will be deferred. Or
Which-
at the very least referred for secondary inspection.
Which, in fairness, sir, some of the immigration officers were able to catch. Ano po? Now, okay.
Yes, yes.
So let's talk about what are needed. Kasi marami din pong tanong dyan na frequent traveler. I mean, who determines? Do you have a parameter for what is a frequent traveler? I can go up to an immigration officer and I say, but sir, I'm a frequent traveler. I travel once a year. And then the immigration officer could say, that's not a frequent traveler. A frequent traveler to me is 3 times a year. Who makes that distinction?
Well, first of all, you will see it from the passport and even from the travel record of the passenger, which is already there in the BI, no? But the travel history, walang hard and fast rule. Kung ano ba talaga yung ibig sabihin ng frequent traveler. But that frequency of travel is just one factor that will be considered with all the other factors that are presented. Na kasama na dun yung sinabi ko, yung consistency with the declared travel of purpose, as well as the basic documents that are submitted.
Okay. Yusek, so isa-isahin po natin. Yung pong mga
Yes.
basic. Let's go to the basic. This is for everyone.
Yes.
Let's be
Yes.
very clear about this.
Yes.
We need the passport for obvious reasons. Visa, if applicable, of course.
Yes.
Ito po, confirmed return ticket when necessary.
Yes.
Kung kinakailangan.
Okay.
Kailan may return ticket.
Magandang halimbawa niyan, ma'am, kung scholar abroad, and then the scholarship is for a year. You don't need to have a round-trip ticket at that point. Kasi pwede naman to follow na rin yung round-trip ticket. And the factual circumstances of that traveler being a scholar will already be established from the other documents that scholar will present.
All right. So, yun po yung mga basic, no? Passport, visa if applicable, boarding pass, and confirmed return ticket when necessary. As you gave an example a while ago, those are basic. That's for each and every one of us. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, sir, if I'm missing something. Now, let's go to traveling as tourists on self-funded
Okay.
travelers. Again, we need the basic 4. Yung pong, as we mentioned a while ago. Here comes the tricky part.
Okay.
Do I really need to submit, if I'm self-funded, do I really need to bring a proof of hotel booking?
Not necessarily, because as I said earlier, itong proof of financial capacity, that will only come into play if you're not able to pass primary inspection. If the primary inspector is not satisfied by your declared travel of purpose, as well as visa fee, the basic documents you submitted, and the information you provided sa e-travel portal, as well as your demeanor, your responses to the questions that are propounded.
So, Yusek, this is very relative. Hindi ho ba? This is really the judgment call of the immigration officer.
It can be relative, but it needs to be relative. There needs to be discretion on the part of the immigration officer in conducting primary inspection as well as secondary inspection, because one of the most common circumstances that we want to look out for are Filipinos posing as tourists.
Opo.
Yet their intention is to travel abroad. So the immigration officer must be in a
Sorry,
position
sir. Yet their
and must have
intention is to
the
travel abroad. I didn't get that. Sabi mo, they're
sorry.
Sige, let's clear that up.
Work abroad.
Okay.
Sorry, work abroad. They're posing as tourists, but their true intention is to work abroad. The immigration officer must be in a position to ferret that out from the passenger.
And what would the hotel booking as one of the possible requirements prove that I'm a tourist but I want to work abroad?
It will prove that you're really a tourist. It's one of the evidence that we will use to prove that you are indeed a tourist and not someone who intends to work abroad.
I do understand, and I do think, I'm going to say though, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think I can get a booking in these platforms.
Yes.
Hindi ho ba? And present it. But in
Yes.
fact, sir, I did
Yes.
not actually pay for that. How
Yes.
does the immigration officer, how does that come into play now?
That's one of the problems that we realize, no? Na it's really easy to get a booking without paying for it. In fact, that's one of the things na ginagawa ng mga traffickers. Na they're actually the ones who secure the booking for the Filipino who will be trafficked, and they supply that booking to the Filipino who will be trafficked and tell that Filipino to present that to immigration officer.
Tama.
So we are aware that the hotel booking by itself is not enough to establish purpose of travel. Kaya nga, once again, we go back to totality of circumstances. You look at the totality of circumstances to determine if indeed that traveler is truthful. No, the purpose of travel is indeed consistent with what's stated.
But that's still my question, Yusek. No, I hope you don't mind. These are possible documents that an immigration officer may ask. My question is, with these added requirements, such as for self-funded pa lang to, proof of hotel booking, nako, pupunta pa ako dyan sa financial capacity in a while. Are you telling me, sir, are you suggesting to me, or to those watching, if you're self-funded, dalin mo na yung kopya ng hotel booking? Kailangan ba dalhin na namin yun? Kasi it's relative, sir. It's the judgment call of the immigration officer. So kung hindi niya, pag sa palagay niya, nako, itong this woman in front of me, I have doubts about this one, tatanungin ngayon ako, where's your hotel booking? What if I did not bring it, sir?
Okay.
Kunwari lang, sabihin natin, hindi ko po dala. Kasi confident ako, hindi ako, papayagan ako nitong immigration officer na to. So, what is your suggestion? Dali na po lahat yon?
Okay. Balik ko muna dun sa context. Dapat hindi mangyari yun. Dapat kung klaro na talaga, dapat kung may previous travel history at may kita naman natin walang red flags at the Filipinos able to respond properly to the immigration offer at the level of preliminary primary inspection, dapat wala ng secondary inspection, dapat wala ng further documents.
Opo.
But for some, no, to be safe, lalo na yung mga first-time travelers, magdala kayo. Magdala
na.
Kung sakaling magka-problema, if ever the immigration officer is a little bit abusive or requested for unnecessary documents or gave the passenger a hard time, let us know, no? We can take appropriate action. But nevertheless, that's one of the points we are addressing already, you know. May training yung mga IOs natin sa immigration on how to properly implement the departure formalities. May training sila on conflict resolution, on proper demeanor.
Yeah.
Naturally, there are going to be hiccups along the road, but we intend to resolve that.
So, that I still need to clarify this, sir. Are you telling me right now that if one is a frequent traveler and answered the immigration officer satisfactorily, sir, hindi na po kami, hindi na po siya, o kung sino man, hindi na po hihinga nung hotel booking, etc. Ganun ho ba yun? Kasi meron pang sir, ang tanong ho dito kasi, kailangan meron pang financial capacity or source of income consistent with declared purpose of travel. I understand, sir, what you're saying, that if they don't see any red flags, you don't need these secondary documents. But that's the problem. That is going to be the call of the immigration officer. What if, sir, dumating po ako or anybody doon sa immigration at nervyusin dahil, my gosh, pwede akong pwede akong i-reject nitong immigration officer na to at hindi ako makakasakay. Pwedeng manaig po yung takot or nervyos
Tama yun. So, unang-una, papayuhin natin yung mga kababayan natin. Huwag kayong matakot dito sa departure formalities dahil kung tapat if you are true, no, to your intended travel of purpose, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to be afraid of. At the same time, we are making it a point to properly train our immigration officers to be considerate, no? To be considerate of tong mga sentiments, no? Tong mga anxieties or feelings sa mga travelers natin when they go before the immigration officer.
Yeah.
And finally, we do have processes now. There are remedies if the immigration officer is abusive.
Okay, we just need to take a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Justice Undersecretary Nicholas Ty. Yusek, ang dami ko pa pong tanong. Dito pa rin tayo sa self-funded travelers, no? Financial capacity, it could be asked as well from the passenger or source of income consistent with declared purpose of travel. First off, what must be presented for financial capacity, sir?
You don't have to present all of this, no, to satisfy the second-time inspector. You should, minsan, maybe one or some of those documents that are listed down there can be sufficient to get you past immigration. I think certificate of employment, if you're a first-time traveler, medyo bata-bata ka, I think proof of employment would be a good document to get you past immigration.
And dun sa, kasi pag kumukuha ho ng visa, meron talagang proof of employment, pero meron din
Yes.
yung income. Kailangan ho ba pati yung kinikita nung tao nandun sa proof of employment?
Pwede na malagay sa proof of employment. Wala namang hard and fast rule na lalagay doon sa proof of employment yung kinikita. But pwede din naman sa financial capacity. Lumagay doon, may mga bank statements tayo.
Yeah. So help me understand, what is financial capacity? Do
Yes.
you expect a
Okay.
bank certificate? Ganun ho ba yon? Last 6 months transaction, ano ho ba tong financial capacity para magdala po kami?
At the bare minimum, yung proof of financial capacity is to show that you can finance your trip. So meaning that would depend on the duration or on the destination on where you are at, no? At the very least, yun ang kailangan ma-establish natin.
And how do I prove that? What is the financial capacity, sir? Is it a bank certificate? Is it going to be my...
Yeah. A bank certificate could work. Certificate of employment could work. But then, Pinky, balik lang tayo. Itong requirement na to, for more than 95% of the time, hindi hihingi niya ng immigration
Yeah.
officer.
And I understand that, and that was what was said yesterday, sir. But I'm still concerned about the 5%. I know
Yes.
it's quite easy to say, huwag kayong mag-alala, pero mag-aalala po ang tao. At kahit na po sabihin natin 95, pwede kang nasama dun sa 5% eh. Kaya kailangan clear, ano ho ba itong financial capacity? At pag sinabi hong consistent with declared purpose of travel, ibig sabihin kapag 5 araw lang ang travel mo, dapat consistent yung pera mo dun sa 5 days of travel mo and your choice of destination. Vis-a-vis, you're out for 1 month, dapat yung financial capacity mo commensurate doon sa isang buwan mong pananatili depending on the country. Meron pong syempre bansa na mas mahal, meron pong bansa na mas mura na
Yes.
pupuntahan. Who determines what is consistent with declared purpose of travel? Si immigration officer din po?
Bare minimum, you're able to finance your travels, no, depending on the circumstances. And tama kayo, it's the immigration officer that will make that determination.
All right. Quick question. Again, sir, a break, no? Tell me your suggestion. Nandito pa lang tayo sa unang category, doon
Yes.
sa mga self-funded. Tell us now, to those listening, your suggestion. Should we bring these documents to be safe?
Kung planning ka, just to be safe, you can bring just to reassure yourself, just to lessen your anxiety. You don't have to bring all the documents, maybe just a certificate of employment. But then again, no, may kita na yan eh. Chances are, may kita na yan ng immigration officer within the 45-second window from your demeanor, from the information you supplied in e-travel portal, and from your basic documents.
Okay. Again, a short break. We'll be right back. The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Justice Undersecretary Nicholas Ty. Just to summarize, just one area that we talked about. Yusek is saying that, well, if you're a frequent traveler, you really just need to bring the 4 basic requirements. However, if you want to be safe, you can bring the others. But I remember, Yusek, ang sabi nyo, kahit isa lang, dun sa iba. For example, certificate of employment or
Yes.
bank certificate. Kahit isa lang dyan, ha? And I'm going to say this over and over again. You said that, kahit isa lang po dyan. All right.
Yes.
Ito pong problema, if sponsored by relatives abroad within the first
Okay.
civil degree,
Okay.
nako, marami hong mahihirapan dito. Ibig sabihin, if you're sponsored by your parents, your spouse, or children, kailangan po
Yes.
ng original birth or marriage certificate. Why, sir? Hindi ho ba yung birth certificate ay ibinibigay mo na po yun pag kumuha ka ng pasaporte?
That's to establish relationship, no? Proof of relationship. Hindi mo makita sa passport eh. Kung you won't be able to determine from the passport if your sponsor is your relative. You need the birth certificate to be able to do that.
Because the your birth certificate, I'm sorry, to your passport name now could have changed. Is that the
Could have
logical
changed,
explanation
and
there?
That's true. It could have changed. At madami naman tayong magkaapelido eh. Diba? Hindi natin malalaman yun for sure. If the person who is sponsoring you abroad, who's supposed to be your parent, even if you have the same last name, we can't establish that merely from the passport if you are in
Why?
need.
Because in the birth certificate,
Yeah.
nakasulat doon yung yung parents.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
Okay. Tapos yung sa sponsor, kailangan po ng documents. Let's say it's your father, your spouse, or your children.
Yes.
They need to send a copy. You must have rather a copy of their valid passport. So photocopy po ito. Am I correct, sir? Kailangan, obviously.
Yes.
Valid
yes.
work visa
Yes.
permit or residence permit. They must secure either one of this. Yung pong visa permit, residence permit, o kaya equivalent document.
Yes. But before that, let me just mention something about this category in
Go
relatives
ahead,
within
sir.
first civil degree. Previous departure formalities no 2015, nakalump tong category nito with all relatives within fourth civil degree. At for that entire category, one of the requirements is an affidavit of support authenticated by the Philippine Consulate. Tinanggal na namin yun specifically for first degree relatives.
I
So
see.
we created a specific category for first degree relatives that no longer included that requirement as one of their requirements.
Yeah. So what you're trying to say is, pinadali nyo pa ito actually. Itong bagong
pinadali
guideline
namin
na to.
for anak or magulang.
Opo, pero doon sa far relatives or non-relative, doon naiwan po yun doon. Okay. Sir, just very quickly,
Yes,
maybe
as
just,
is stated.
I wish we had more time, no, but we don't. A couple of other things. Why the need to submit these documents? This is very common on social media, especially doon sa nag-secure ng visa. When you have submitted these documents upon your application for visa.
Okay. Unang-una, yung requirements na to, kung financial capacity, mas kakailanganin yan sa mga visa-free countries. If you remember, starting the past few years, we really had this problem with Filipinos who were trafficked across the region in ASEAN countries such as Cambodia,
Myanmar.
Myanmar, Laos, Thailand. They posed as tourists, but they
Tama.
ended up working in Pogo scam hubs there. Yun
Opo.
ang naging problema namin eh. Kaya kami naghigpit last year on itong mga posing as tourists pero baka naman
Opo.
nagtatrabaho abroad. So yun, visa-free yun. Diba? At
Yes.
doon, medyo kailangan talaga natin ng proof of financial capacity for mga may red flag.
Right.
If you're traveling to a country that requires a visa, such as let's say somewhere in Europe,
Opo.
alam naman ng IO na somewhat sa level ng embassy na establish mo na yung proof of financial capacity mo. But
Correct.
nevertheless, let me just point something out. Iba yung interest ng mga foreign nationals o ng mga foreign consulate or foreign embassies at iba din yung interest natin dito sa Pilipinas. Sa kanila, gusto lang nila manigurado na hindi magti-TNT yun sa bansa nila. No? Tayo, interest natin is ayaw natin ma-traffic, ayaw natin mabiktima yung mga kababayan natin. Kaya, mind you, there are still a few instances where a Filipino has a visa to work abroad and yet they are trafficked.
So, if we have different, of course, as you mentioned, abroad, they want to make sure na hindi ka mananatili doon at may iwan doon. Kaya tayo, ang gusto po natin ay hindi matraffic yung yung tao abroad. But
Yes.
I premised that question earlier on people who secure visas. Now, let's talk about very briefly. Sinabi nyo nga, meron kasi mga ASEAN countries na naging problema. As you mentioned a while ago, apat yan on human trafficking. Ano po. These countries do not require a visa. So there was also a question I read on social media. Sinabi, bakit hindi maghigpit dito sa mga bansa na hindi kailangan ng visa para mapakita na hindi ka trafficked person?
Naghigpit na kami doon. In fact, napakahigpit namin doon. So, yun ang top destinations na madami na defer na departure ng mga Pilipino. So, definitely, naghigpit kami doon. But it doesn't mean na yung mga other destinations na dapat pabayaan lang namin. Kahit paano nandyan pa rin yan. But alam namin that the situation there would be easier, would be simpler than those countries na visa-free.
Undersecretary Nicholas Ty, sir, thank you so much for answering a lot of my queries, and I actually have a lot more. However, we've run out of time. Maybe we'll have a part
Yes.
2, sir. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Okay. Okay, you're welcome, Ma'am Pinky.
Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.